Hey, what's up, everybody? Today is day 7 of the COVID-19 emergency lesson plans for distance learning. Today is March 26, 2020. We will be continuing with the Roaring Twenties, focusing today on organized crime and its relation with prohibition that we looked at over the past few days as well. Feel free to pause this, replay this, or whatever you need to do in order to get down the information that you need is here for you and um, your accessibility. So today we're looking into organized crime, mainly the gangster era and a few of the aspects that happened with that. So the golden age of gangsters. Huge profits are made from smuggling and selling alcohol that led to crime and gangs. It is illegal to make, purchase, and consume alcohol in the United States at this time period. So those people who are willing to do this have the opportunity to make a lot of money. There's a high demand for this. Gangs which sought to control cities would fight in gang wars. This happened all across the United States. Happened in New Jersey, happened in California, up north, Illinois. Many cities um, had more than one person trying to fight for control. A lot of times it turned violent and bloody. And in order to succeed in this, they would usually bribe police and judges. Now, a bribe is paying money to somebody in order to get your way. So they would, let's just say, give $1,000 every month to a certain police department. That police department would either A, not arrest these gangsters, or B, just make sure they're in a different location whenever something illegal happens. And if the police were not corrupt and they still did what they needed to do, they'd bribe judges. So even if they were arrested, they would usually be let go. So very few of these people actually get arrested, and there's even much fewer convictions, meaning much less people, many less people are sent to prison for this. And the most important person of this time period is this gentleman here named Al Capone. He had a nickname of Scarface. As a kid, he was cut with a knife on his cheek on his left side, and has a big, almost Joker style cut going down the left side of his face. It's healed, but it's a scar. He's from Chicago, and he is one of the leaders of a gang in Chicago. And for 6 years, between 1925 and 1931, he has gang warfare for fighting control of the Chicago underground. His main um, nemesis in this is a man named Bugsy Malone. He is a Irish American gangster from Chicago. Al Capone himself is Italian. This culminates in the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. This occurred on February 14th, Valentine's Day of 1929. Now, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre is actually interesting in the fact that what happened, how no one was actually ever arrested for this murder and massacre. It leads to the death of 7 disarmed members of Bugsy Malone's gang. Basically, what happened is a few people from Bugsy Malone's gang are packing up alcohol to ship out, and 4 people from Al Capone's gang arrive. 2 of them are dressed as police officers, the other 2 are just in regular clothing. They go in to pretend to make an arrest. Now, because of the bribes with the police department and the judges, Bugsy Malone's gang doesn't fight. They're just like, all right, yeah, we'll be arrested. They put their hands up against the wall. The quote unquote police officers disarm them. They take their guns. And then 2 people come out from behind them with Thompson submachine guns and open fire, riddling them with bullets. Um, of the 7 people there, 6 of them wind up dropping dead. One of them dies later on in the hospital. Those that are still alive on the ground, they get finished off with a close range shotgun blast, killing them as well. Afterwards, the people who are dressed as cops walk out with the people in civilian clothing with their hands up, pretend to make an arrest for the murder, and they kind of just go off and do whatever. Now, this everyone knew it was Al Capone's people who were responsible for this. However, Al Capone himself was in Florida at the time and was unable to be charged with this murder. In fact, Al Capone was never charged with murder or any of the crimes that we would consider jail worthy. What wound up actually getting him was tax evasion. Al Capone had millions upon millions of dollars coming in every year with his bootleg business and his alcohol business, and he was not paying any taxes on it. So when the government found that out, they sent a man named Elliot Ness to actually look into this, and he was actually charged and arrested for tax evasion. He was sentenced to 11 years in prison. In this time, he actually went to a place called Alcatraz. Now, Alcatraz is a island fortress prison in San Francisco Harbor, San Francisco Bay, that is almost impossible to escape. It is on an island in San Francisco Bay, just maybe half a mile from where the Golden Gate Bridge is, and is a maximum security prison. Now, people have escaped from it, but as far as we know, no one's actually made it out alive from the escape. First off, it's a maximum security. It's very difficult to get out in the beginning. And if you just happen to get out, which a few people have, you are in the middle of San Francisco Bay. Now, San Francisco Bay is a cold water bay, even though it's in California. The water is pretty cold. There's very strong currents that take it out to the Pacific Ocean. It's very far from land, and there's actually sharks in this water. So if you happen to make it out, you then have to swim a great distance to get to dry land. Um, So most likely, you'd wind up either drowning and your body would be sent out to sea or attacked by sharks in the water. So of the people who we know that did make it out of there, we are pretty sure that they actually did not make it to land themselves and they died and were swept out to sea. So overall, Al Capone spends 11 years in prison and winds up getting released under house arrest, more or less, because he contracted syphilis. Now, syphilis is an STD, and what it did is it attacked his brain. So he went into prison as the most feared gangster in the United States, one of the leaders of the illegal prohibition movement, and left prison with the mentality of a 5-year-old. Stories even say that when he was at his home under house arrest, he'd sit in a chair at his pool with a fishing rod because he thought he was a child fishing in a lake, even though he was a 50-something-year-old gangster. This is the effect that the disease had on his mind. So this is an image of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. You see 6 of the 7 people, 5 of them on the ground, one of them is slumped on the chair. And this is a police photograph right after it happened. As you can see, it was bloody, it was a mess, and this eventually led to people um, looking more into this. However, no one was ever arrested, no one was ever charged with this crime, and even though everyone knew who did it, no one ever paid the price for this. So the golden age of gangsterism, after prohibition comes to an end, you start moving into different areas of racketeering and corruption. Many of them get involved in prostitution, becoming pimps, and open up different places where there is unethical things happening. A lot of them lead to gambling, open up gambling businesses. This is when your Las Vegas opens. It's actually will eventually become the mafia, a mafia-owned area. Same thing with Atlantic City in New Jersey, and narcotics. A lot of them move into drug trafficking. Merchants are forced to pay protection money. You're paying protection money for them to protect you and also for them not to attack you because they are so powerful. If you have a store or a company or a business, you'd have to give a cut to whatever gangsters rule that area. And if you don't, another gangster might rob you and they won't do anything about it, or they just might attack you themselves. They might throw a brick through the window, steal some of your stuff, and he has even gone far enough to actually put bombs in the mail, send them to these businesses, and blow up the businesses themselves. and even more of them get infiltrated as union organizers. The most famous being a guy named Jimmy Hoffa. He was a labor organizer, judge of the Teamsters in the 1960s. If you saw the movie The Irishman or heard of it, it's a very long movie and highly inappropriate, but it's a long movie. It was actually filmed in Paterson, in the area of our school, actually. So in the film, you actually see um, a lot of buildings that we see when we look at the windows of our school and when we are in the parking lot or walking the gym. Now, Jimmy Hoffa himself actually disappeared. No one really knows what happened to him. Um, he was just he made a phone call one day and he was alive, and then the next thing he disappears and no one ever found his body. No one ever came forward saying what happened to him. There's several rumors. The craziest rumor was that he was actually buried in Giant Stadium, underneath the 10-yard line. I mean Giant Stadium as in the old Giant Stadium, not the new MetLife Stadium. Um, Underneath the 10-yard line. But even Mythbusters tested that and they never found anything on that. All right. Okay, lastly, um, the Lindbergh baby kidnapping. So in 1932, Charles Lindbergh Jr., the son of Charles Lindbergh, famous for being the first solo person to fly across the Atlantic Ocean, winds up being kidnapped. Now, Charles Lindbergh was one of the most famous people in the United States at this time. It seems mundane that you would have someone being famous for flying across the ocean, being hundreds of planes do it every single day. However, this is a small private plane um, that flew from New York to Paris. And in fact, the engine was actually to this plane was actually built in Patterson. If you go to the museum across the street from our school, they actually have a model, a reconstruction of the actual engine that was used on the plane called the Spirit of St. Louis that flew across. Anyway, in 1932, his child gets kidnapped and he looks for a ransom. Now, a ransom is we have your child, you pay us this amount of money, we'll give you your child back. If not, something bad's going to happen. However, the baby actually winds up being killed. Now, we're not too sure exactly what happened, but what most people believe is the baby was kept on the second story of the house. There was a big ladder in the backyard. This happens in New Jersey, by the way. The ladder was put up against the roof, against the wall. The kidnapper went up there, and we don't know if we killed the baby or if the baby fell. Most people think that the baby fell as he was coming down and died. The body of the child was actually found about 100, 150 feet from the house in the woods in the backyard. Um, this leads to the Lindbergh Law, which means that if you kidnap someone, if you abduct someone across interstate lines, it is a death penalty offense. So if you make the choice to travel to another state to kidnap somebody, you can actually get the death penalty. They arrest a man named Bruno Hauptmann, who is a German immigrant. He's charged and convicted with the crime, and he gets executed via the electric chair in 1934. Today, there's some dispute of whether he or not he was involved. As we went over yesterday with immigration, there was a lot of racism, not just to African Americans, but to people who are foreigners in general. So because this guy was a foreigner from Germany, and we just finished World War One against Germany, there was a lot of racism against Germans. So a lot of people believe that he was a fall guy who just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, couldn't speak English that well, so he couldn't really defend himself, and was convicted of the kidnapping and murder and actually executed for it. To this day, we don't know exactly who kidnapped the Lindbergh baby, but this was called the crime of the century up until O.J. Simpson's arrestment in 1994. Um, so yeah, that is the Lindbergh baby kidnapping. All right, so here's what we're doing today, guys. Yesterday you read a section called Changing Way of Life. Today we will be answering questions 1, 3, 4, 5 at the end of the section. Question 1 is the vocabulary. You are writing your own sentences with the vocabulary word. So you need to show you know what it means by creating your own sentence. For the other ones, I want 7th grade quality responses where you ace the question. That means you restate the prompt, you answer it, and you provide evidence. That's the only way to receive full credit on that. For homework, which is due by 11:59 tonight, there's a chart I uploaded on U.S. patterns of immigration, basically who was coming in 1920 and 1929 from what countries and the amount of people. There's 3 questions on that. Please answer that also in 1 to 2 complete sentences and ace the question. Anyway, thank you for another great day, guys. I will talk to you all later and have a great day.